We have our Sangh Mr. Balakrishna Sastry ji. We fondly call him Balu ji. And I'll give you a brief introduction before he comes on stage. Balu ji has been associated with Hindu Dharma Sangh, HSS, for a long time. He started in 1992 and he's born here in LA County. And his family is also associated with HSS for a long time. Currently, Baluji works at Southern California Edison, and he has been instrumental in making these kind of programs success and inspire many volunteers. With that, I invite Baluji.
Namaste, everyone. So we know that I think Swamiji has already spoken a lot of wonderful words, and we've seen the movie. So what will happen is I'll just present a few thoughts, and after that we'll have a 1-minute silence or 30-second silence where we can take our like an individual sankalp, and then we'll have prarthana. So of course we know 150th birth anniversary. So one of the theme that HSS has thought of, which the national theme thought, is universal peace through yoga and dharma. So how did this kind of theme come about, and how can we kind of tie the things together? I just thought I'll present a few thoughts on that, and then we'll move on to Sankalp. So there's a shloka, and I think it comes in Mahabharata. It says, Dharana dharma ityahu dharmo dharayate praja yasya dharana samyuktam sadharma iti nishayaha. So basically it says dharma is derived from the word dharana, that is to sustain, and dharma sustains society. So that which has the society capacity to sustain, that is dharma basically. So that's one definition that has been given. Another aspect of the way we use the word dharma is when we look at the nature, the dharma of fire is to burn, right? And similarly, the dharma of water is to be wet. And so similarly, there's a certain natural tendency, there's a certain natural quality that exists in living beings, inanimate objects, and so on. And that helps sustain the creation, and that helps sustain the society. But one unique thing is, unlike animals, which only do the things as per the nature. So for example, an animal will never overeat, for example. Humans, on the other hand, we don't just eat, sometimes we not only have a tendency to just be in our nature, but sometimes we fall below the basic element of nature. So we might tend to overeat. But on the other hand, if we're able to rise above just the basic tendency of eating, then you may even find people who do upvas or who fast. Maybe they don't stay total upvas, but they may just eat fruits or something. So this is a small example where a human being has the capacity to do something a little bit extra. So human beings have the capacity to sustain, but they can also do actions that can be potentially destructive. So that is why human beings have a higher responsibility when it comes to dharma. And this idea, see, we live in the United States, and one of the ideas that's very strong here is rights. For example, I have the right to freedom, I have the right to speech, I have the right to this, I have the right to that. And while that's important, that doesn't go far enough. So that is where the Hindu view is very unique. It rises one step above that. It says not just rights, but responsibilities. Because what can inevitably happen is my right at some day will conflict with your right. So for example, I might be living in an apartment, and let's just say I like to play loud guitar. I want to play really loud. And so I think, hey, it's my right to play that. But maybe my next door neighbor, is a family who has a newborn. Now they think, oh, it's my right to have silence. But now their right and my right has started clashing. In fact, during the India-China war, there was some strike or something going on in a few companies because some of the laborers, they wanted better terms, etc. And now, when the war broke out, some of the communist trade unions, they said, war, no war, doesn't matter, we're going to strike. But one of the Sangha-inspired labor union, Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, their attitude was no. Now, this is not the time for us to strike. Yes, we have legitimate grievances, But we are going to keep aside those grievances. We're going to work together because the first dharma is towards our society and our nation. Once that is done, then we will go back and we will try and resolve some of these differences. So this is where what is dharma is often highly contextual. It's not always that we know exactly what is not. But these are just a few examples of when we have that spirit, then the things can work a little bit better. In fact, I was reading somewhere that in Japan, for example, there tends to be a little better cooperation between some of the businesses and labor because each of them feels a certain sense of responsibility. That sense of responsibility tends to be a little bit higher. So when you stay limited only to rights, then we may get limited. Another example just on this. So I used to work at mortgage company Countrywide. Of course, that doesn't exist anymore. And so I had a colleague of mine who was sitting in a cubicle next to mine. So he asked, where'd you graduate from? So I said, yeah, I went to UCLA, etc., etc. And he said, so where do you stay? I said, no, I stay at home. My parents are there, and it's only a 20-minute commute, so it's fine. He said, oh, that's good. Yeah, my commute is only 5 minutes. I stay with my grandmother. I said, oh, okay, so you stay with grandma. So are your parents like, living in some other state or something? So he said, no, actually, well, my parents are divorced, but my mom is like in Simi Valley itself, and so is my grandmother. So I was a little curious. I said, okay, well, I mean, that's nice to stay with grandma, but any reason you don't stay with mom? He said, well, see, my mom is going to charge me rent, whereas grandma's not going to charge me rent. She thinks it's her right to charge me rent because I'm over 22 years old. So now when they think, oh, I'm not saying everybody does this, but somebody thinks it's my right to charge you rent, so somebody else is going to say, well, okay, it's my right to put you in an old age home when, you're 65 and I'll just come once or twice during Christmas and that's it. So, rights is important, but dharma takes us one step above that. It says, no, I don't want to just think about what is my right. Once I have that, I want to go above and beyond to take responsibility and do that which sustains. So now, there comes, okay, you're doing that which sustains, but what is the attitude with which you're doing it? So, I think a lot of us may know Raghuramji, who is, some of us know, but he's from SVyasa Yoga Institute in Bangalore. So he used to work in a power corporation, Karnataka Power Corporation. They own some power plants and they sell electricity to this Karnataka Electricity Board or something. So, again, but still it's a semi-government operation. You end up with some people are honest, some people are kind of corrupt, take money under the table and so on. So there was this one person who was, he was a very honest person. But Raghuramji would ask, how are you doing? He'd be like, oh, how do you think I'm doing? I don't take money under the table. Look at my shirt, it's all torn and stuff like that. Okay, fine. So every time he would ask this question, this person would keep saying, oh, I'm so honest, but look at this, see my slippers. So Raghuramji said, listen, you know what, you're better off being corrupt, because if you're going to preach dharma in this way, then nobody's going to want to do dharma. Everyone will say, you know what, I'm more happy doing a dharma. So if you're going to do this, you should do it with the right attitude. So what is that right attitude? That is where the concept of yoga comes in, right? So because in Bhagavad Gita it says, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhi siddho samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. So what is that equanimous or that kind of calm way? How do you keep yourself from not getting too high or not getting too low and then doing the work? So even a dharmic action, if it is not perceived as, hey, this person is doing this dharmic action in a way which inspires others, then people are not going to want to do that. But of course, this is challenging because we all, in our day-to-day life, we face various different challenges. We're driving on the road, somebody cuts us off. I know, at least for myself, for a moment, at least for 10 seconds, I feel, oh man, what is this guy cutting me off? But then you try and bring yourself back. And that is where our ancient sages, like Swamiji has mentioned, right? They've given us various different techniques. Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, right? Path of knowledge, path of, Patanjali has mentioned the Ashtanga Yoga and Raja Yoga. Karma Yoga, we know, when Dr. Ji started Sangha, right? So with a lot of our Pracharaks and Vistarak, you can say that they're immersed in Karma Yoga. And these are not watertight compartments. These all intermix with each other. And that gives us kind of the right attitude with which we can do the things. And again, just to give a small example on this one, One time when there were some Sangha Pracharaks who had gone to different places, and Dr. Hedgewar would keep in touch with them, as to what they're doing and all that. Because initially Sangha work started in Nagpur, but later on it spread to different places. And one time, one Pracharak wrote a letter to the person. Dr. Ji had asked, how is Shakha in this place going? So that person said, oh, you know what, that Shakha was just like a gymnasium. They didn't do any Boudhik, it was just some Sharirik, some games, and that was it. They didn't even do Geet and this and that, and bam. So now Dr. Ji said, listen, I mean, what you say may be true, but that's not the right attitude with which to do it. So that Pracharak was definitely doing a dharmic task, but Dr. Ji felt maybe the attitude had slipped a little bit. So he had to a little bit correct and say, no, this is the way the attitude should be. So let us correct it with that right spirit. So now coming to SV150 here, given this peace, universal peace through yoga and dharma, we notice that a lot of the conflicts in the world are because, like Swamiji has mentioned, Swami Sarvadevananda mentioned, that my way is the only way. This type of a thinking tends to be. So, but when we get a little better understanding, or try to at least realize that, okay, this is the ideal of dharma, and let me start going there little by little. And if through some individual sadhana, because in Sangha work at least, we do a lot of things collectively, but how do we keep us doing it in the right attitude? And when we combine the good actions, dharmic actions, combined with that personal sadhana. So there are many different things, right? Swamiji has mentioned about, let us read something on Vivekananda, so like that, there's so many things we can do. We're all doing, right? Some of us come to Shakha, there's those of us who do yoga regularly, donate to Ekal Vidyalaya, etc. But this is the thing that we need to keep going. Because it's not enough just to hear all this thing, but in our daily life, what is those small things that we can do? And so HSS has come up with a small program. So today, of course, we have the launch program. But after this, up to March or April, we have the Dharma Bhi. So this is a good opportunity, not just for kids, but for parents also, to learn more about some of the stories of Vivekananda. The syllabus is going to be there, and I'm sure there's flyers, etc. And then later on, there will also be Dharma and Yoga Fest, where we'll maybe try and invite some other groups. It could be spiritual gurus, bhajan groups, etc. And have some common program sometime in September. And let us kind of take this year as a time to reflect on this. Regular Shakha and things will be going on as usual. But since this year is little extra opportunity to try and spread the message of Dharma a little bit further beyond just our comfort zone. So with that, I'll pretty much conclude. And what we'll do now is we'll take maybe about a minute or 40 seconds or so. And this thing is called Sankalp. So Sankalp basically means that we will just sit and for about 45 seconds, and then we'll end with one Omkar. So when I say Om, then we're pretty much done. So the Sankalp could be, like we said, reading something about Vivekananda. It could be, maybe we don't come to Shakha regularly, so we should come a little more often. Maybe it can be, hey, I haven't been donating to Ekal Vidyalaya, but I think now I should start, something. So in our own mind, we can think of various different things. Or maybe I'm not doing yogasana on a regular basis, but now Sonaji has explained to us all the wonderful things. Maybe we need to start doing a little more on a regular basis. So like this, there's so many small things that we can individually think of. So let us, when the Ajna is given, or whenever the instruction is given, we will basically just sit in whatever comfortable posture, and we will, for about 45 seconds or to a minute, we will sit silently, and then I'll say one Omkar, we can join in, and then we will conclude. Okay?
Sankalp. We will now do the Prarthana. Prarthana is the prayer to the Bhagavad Word, after Pratna, we will have Bhojan Mantra. Bhojan Mantra is basically to pray to Lord that we are going to eat the Bhojan. Bhojan means the food. So we will have